It's the hardest thing, not only in tennis, but the game of life, because we all have problems. How we react to them is very different. And there's a whole landscape of ways to react to a problem. On the tennis court, if you can't remember to forget, you'll never be the best you can be.
Welcome to UnNatural Selection, a show about competition, innovation, and the strategies shaping tomorrow's frontiers. I'm Nick Encina. Each week, we speak with pioneers shaping the future.
This is episode number 8. Today, we're stepping into professional tennis, a world where the pressure never lets up and the product is a human being. Only a few athletes ever make it to the top. Fewer stay there. So the real question isn't talent. It's how raw potential gets shaped into something durable. Under stress, under scrutiny, and under constant competition. In this episode, we explore how outliers are identified in a sea of competitors. We talk about the mental discipline required to perform at the highest level. And we look at what it really means to adapt in real time, especially when failure is unavoidable, and forgetting it might matter more than remembering it. Our guest is Rick Macci. Rick is one of the most accomplished and respected figures in the history of tennis, a legendary coach, elite talent developer, and the youngest ever inductee into the USPTA Hall of Fame. Known for his uncanny ability to identify raw potential and transform it into world-class performance, Rick has helped shape the careers of some of the greatest players the sport has ever seen. He has coached 5 world number ones, including Serena Williams, Venus Williams, Jennifer Capriati, Maria Sharapova, and Andy Roddick, and was instrumental in the early development of many others who reached the highest levels of the game. His resume reads like a tennis hall of fame by itself. 5 players ranked number 1 in the world, 2 players ranked number 2 in the world, 8 Olympic gold medals, 12 players ranked in the world, top 10, 52 Grand Slam singles titles, 86 total Grand Slam titles, singles, doubles, mixed, 346 plus USTA junior national titles since 1985, 7-time USPTA National Coach of the Year. His influence on the game goes far beyond technique. His work has reshaped the mindset, training culture, and competitive DNA of modern tennis. His pivotal role in launching the careers of Serena and Venus Williams was immortalized in the Oscar-winning film King Richard, where he was portrayed by John Bernthal. As the founder of the Rick Macci Tennis Academy in Florida, he continues to work hands-on with players of all levels, blending old-school discipline with cutting-edge insight. A master motivator and strategic thinker, Rick's philosophy on competition, talent development, and high performance resonates far beyond the baseline. Let's go.
Rick, it is such an honor to have you here. Welcome to UnNatural Selection.
No, I'm glad to be here. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm super psyched. As I mentioned to you, I've played tennis my entire life, never to the levels of the kind of tennis that you're familiar with, but this is a dream come true for me. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
No, we'll dive into it. And if you got the question, I got the answer.
All right, I've got hopefully some zingers, not really zingers. There's some good ones, and we'll have a good time. But I start with the same question every single time, just to level set and give the listeners also a perspective on the industry, because we can't just assume that they know. So, Rick, in simple terms, please describe the business that you're in and your role within that business.
Well, obviously, I'm known for tennis, but I'm really in the people business. I'm more of a life coach than a tennis coach. Even though the tennis court has been my platform my whole life, I don't really just change strokes. I change the way people look at the world and obviously the game of tennis. So I'm in the people business. It just happened to be tennis has always been my calling card. And, I love what I do even as much today as I did back then.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And before you were coaching world number ones and shaping some of the greatest athletes in tennis history, you're probably developing your instincts, your eye for talent, your approach to coaching, your ability to mold champions. Before all of that, what shaped you as a coach? How did you develop that rare ability to not only spot greatness, but to help bring it to life?
First off, this is a great question. If I can back the truck up, I actually grew up in a small town, Greenville, Ohio, 20 miles southwest of Dayton, Ohio. Uh, my father passed away when I was 10 years old. I used to be a very good golfer. I picked up a racket, went down to the park, hit against the wall. I liked it. Wally was undefeated. It always came back. And this is crazy. Without a lesson, by age 18, I was number one in the Ohio Valley without any lessons. Became really good, really quick, beat a lot of All Americans, but I knew I was never going to be great to make it on the pro tour. I got into coaching at 22, and I always had this gift to want to help others more than myself. And I always like analyzing things. And I've always been relentless to try to figure it out. And I was never satisfied. So I'd always further my education, and doing things on my own growing up. I was always mentally strong in the Hall of Fame for tennis and basketball. So I think those cornerstones or those gold nuggets have always been inside of me. So when you have that combination, like helping others more than yourself, always want to figure things out, you know what I mean? And kind of doing it on your own. Um, that has really set me on this path to identify talent. And as I tell people all the time, what you may see is different than Rick may see. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's a very different thing that I do. Obviously, I've been involved with I teach all levels. It's not just people Venus, Serena, Capriati, Roddick, Sharapova, Kenan, Pierce, Messina, Rude. I actually coach Casper's dad, Christian. He was Norway's finest until Casper. But no, listen, I work with everybody. It doesn't matter what age, what level. I just love being on the tennis court. And at the end of the day, when you have passion and you're always trying to figure it out. And, evaluating talent is in the eye of the beholder, and we can get into that. Um, even with the Williamses, what I saw, a lot of people probably couldn't see. I wasn't looking on the outside. So those are kind of the cornerstones of how I'm put together, and I lead by example, and that's like probably the most important thing because I can influence someone's mindset and how they look at things because I deal with the mental part as much as I do the biomechanics and everything else.
Yeah, it's amazing. As you were talking, I was thinking about the fact that you weren't describing a coach, you were describing a leader. In the way that you invest into others, you care more about them, you lead by example, and you try to shape the way that they think and view the world and inspire them to become better. I mean, these are all things that we talk about in industry and about what makes a difference between, say, a manager and a leader. And everything that you said defined to me what a leader looks like.
Absolutely, and plus I lead by example. I'm first to work. I get. I hope you're. I'm glad you're sitting down. I get up every day at 1 o'clock. I know you're going, "Whoa." And somebody asked me, "Why do you get up at 1?" I said, "Well, 12's a little too early, okay?" So I get up at 1, I do my thing, run a half mile. I'm very structured. I'm in a routine. That's how you become a machine. I open up Rick Macci Tennis Center out here at the park every day at 4 o'clock. I'm on the court at 5, and I I just change the way people look at things. Now, if you have someone with unreal genetics and a lot of potential, okay, I can tell when I got to feel when they're going to be good. There's nothing matter of good, going to college free or whatever, or if they've checked enough boxes. Then it's up to Rick Macci to put Humpty Dumpty together and mold greatness. Okay. So this is kind of what I do, but I lead by example. I've never sat down on the tennis court in 30 years,
Wow.
and never. And and that's just another thing that motivates people because you know as well as I do, one word can change a child's life. These kids listen to me more than their opponent. And I have obviously the background, the pedigree, the voice. Okay. But I don't play that card. I just am one of the guys and lead by example. And I can get kids to move mountains where before they didn't think they could do anything.
Yeah, that's incredible. And when we talk about tennis, it's such a fiercely competitive sport. It's also so mental. And especially if we talk
True.
about singles, and singles, you're out there by yourself, trying to compete against someone who's fiercely trying to beat you. So much of it is mental, and the mind of a champion is something that Is it something that you recognize early? You know, you mentioned seeing certain qualities in different players, or is it something that has to be forged over time and through struggle and experience?
Another great question. It cuts both ways. A little bit of it can be environmental. What I mean is your family dynamic, can kind of shape the way you do certain things. Okay. But it can be nurtured and cultivated. And that's where someone like me comes in, never make excuses, run for every ball. You got to remember to forget that's that's in life and in tennis. That's why people are better doubles and singles. They got a therapist on the court, where in singles, it's all by yourself that you got 20 seconds to flip it in your mind, come back come back out there and serve a return and feel great about yourself. And greatness, Nadal, Federer, Djokovic, they've mastered mind control like it never even happened. So, yeah, a little bit of it's environmental. And, all these people that I've had, this is crazy. Sharapova, when I had her at 11, she was in a bubble. I mean, it was unreal. Nothing phased this girl, okay? And she wasn't the best athlete I had at that time. She wasn't even the best 11-year-old, even though I knew she was gonna be great, okay? She was just bang, locked in. Now, you can get that later on, okay? When I had Serena at the same age, the plane would go by and she'd wave at it. I'm going, "Whoa, I don't think this girl's gonna be the greatest that ever picked up a racket." So, for any coach or parent, you don't judge a book by a cover. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. It's junior development, not junior final destination. So I don't that I've just seen people mature later and so on. But if you have that mental box check where you're just right there, it's a very unique quality. Kenan had it, Sophia Kenan, who I have, and, Maria. But it could be, you can get that later on. But if you have that, you're gonna be the best you can be, whether you're just a high school player, you go to college maybe for free. That's such a big thing. Uh, um, but you learn that as you go through the game of life. But to already have that, the technical part and the strategic part, okay, is the easier part for me because we've always been on the cutting edge of biomechanics and the worldwide leader in that area. So that's the easier part. But you give me someone who's rough and tough and is all about the competition and they have great genetics, there's something good in the oven.
Yeah, I'm curious to know how a child effectively has that mindset because, you know, as I mentioned, I played tennis my whole life. And it's so hard to put behind that last point where court was wide open. All you need to do is just tap it over, and yet you hit it into the net. And if you do that 3 or 4 times, it affects your psychology, it affects your confidence. All kinds of things start going downhill, and it's really hard to control that. So to think that you have a Sharapova or other players at 11 or 12 years old that can overcome that and be able to see every single point for what it is. And to do that and deal with the pressure and stay mentally bulletproof over the long haul, that has to be such a unique skill.
Yeah, I don't see that a lot. I actually have a little Ukrainian girl now. Uh, she's 9 years old. I'm telling you right now, this little girl, I'm gonna make her number 1 in the world. She has all the boxes checked. She does a lot of fitness videos. She's had 3 million views.
Wow.
Okay, she has, 400,000 followers on Instagram. Her name's Vlada Haranchar. Okay, but she has the same thing. She has the same thing, plus there's many other boxes checked. Okay. But at the end of the day, okay, you got it. It's all perspective. You control the situation. Don't let it control you. And it's very hard. Listen, no one's an alien. Everybody is going to, feel a certain way. You can get mad. When I had Roddick, he'd get mad, but the next point, he got more determined. Very different. Okay, where some people they could check out and they're gone. That it could you can actually see it on TV, the momentum swing and so on. And no one's perfect. Everybody has their moment. It's just greatness stays in that ideal performance state longer. And if you watch the people at the top, and I tell the kids all the time, listen, if you don't want to listen to me, look what greatness does. Imitate greatness. look how they respond to failure. Don't look, oh, they got a good forehand or backhand or serve. Look how they handle failure, okay, and play the next point. Where you could go to a junior tournament. I mean, I could walk around and just say, he's winning, she's losing, he's winning by just how the people look. I wouldn't
Mhm.
even know what's going on. And this is a very difficult thing to get across to kids because we all try to learn through physical things, harder work, more repetitions, sweat, but to train the mind. And this is what I do with the kids all the time. And when they buy in, especially if they have other boxes checked, uh, you know, that that's the ultimate student. You know what I mean? That's the ultimate student because this is what separates great from good. It's not that, oh, he had a better serve. He had a better, you got to have more boxes checked. You got to have a thoroughbred to win the Derby. I get all that. But to get there is one thing, to stay there, that's rare air. And that's what you see with these guys or Serena. Okay. It's just very, very different. And the number one thing that I try to get everybody to do is to be the best competitor they can be. Okay, that should be the number one goal of any coach, mentor, or parent. If you're all about the competition, and that's why I knew Roddick would be very good. It's like just a feisty little mosquito when I had the guy. He was all about the competition. And when you're all about the competition, you don't check out as much. You don't want to give away candy and free points and disappear. You'll have your moments, but that's the most important thing. Don't go away. Don't go away. And this is what I try to teach the kids because a match could change in the blink of an eye, like all sports. And so this is the hardest thing to get the kids to understand. And believe it or not, it's even harder for the parents because maybe they don't have a super athletic background and they don't understand the psychology involved in that you know? And then there's another aspect to this. Maybe a kid who's never gotten a B in his life and he's very smart or they're a genius and they get all straight A's. I'm not saying that can't help, but they might analyze things so much they just can't understand that your job description really is run, sweat, and shut up. And with some kids, not in that order. Okay, that's kind of what I tell them. So yeah, no, this is the X factor, and no one can present that and wrap it to the kids better than Rick Macci, even better than a sports psychologist, because I know how to talk to the kids and how to put this thing together. And if they buy in, they're gonna become the best they can be.
It's you said something, I mean, you said many things there that gave me aha moments, but one specific one you mentioned about loving the competition. It's so true, right? I mean, if your goal is to love winning, then when you're losing, that motivation is gone because your trophy, what you're aiming for seems so far away and getting further. Whereas when you love the competition, if you're losing, you actually have more to give because now you're like you have even more to compete to try to get to the finish line. And so I can see that, especially when I think about players like Nadal and others who it feels like more than any other player in history, I have never seen a professional player that played every single point like it was match point. It just he gave the effort, he gave the heart, everything about every single I never saw him tank a point or just give up a set because he had it won or anything like that. He was always in it at every single point. His body took a toll for it, but you could see that fire with every bounce of the ball.
Absolutely, and that's why I said, copy him. And you know what? Iga did that. Iga did that. Okay. She wanted to do everything like Nadal. But that takes such discipline, and we all know that if you don't have self-discipline, you're not gonna be good at anything. You'll be all over the map. Where here's someone, Iga, she's gonna do just like Rafa, and because she had other attributes, but no, he's the ultimate, he's the ultimate in that category. Bulletproof, just bulletproof. You can't say, "Well, I could be bulletproof if I was that fast or had a forehand like that or whatever." No, it's not on the outside. It's the inside. He didn't have the best serve. He didn't have the best volley. Backhand was good. It wasn't like one of the top 25 on the tour, His forehand was, okay, but his mind. And what happened is when you get in that routine, like I said, you become that machine, then people, especially when they played him on clay, but before the match even started, they know it's gonna be breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we're gonna be here a while, and it was just like, the guy's 112-3 at Roland Garros, 14 French Open title. So, that didn't happen by accident. A lot of those, the people almost mailed it in that they were gonna lose before the match because he set that over a period of time. And it cuts the other way. If people know you check out or you get angry or whatever, they'll hang in there longer. They know you're going to give them some candy. So, I mean, Jimmy Connors way back in the day, they knew that he wasn't going to give up. And these are the qualities. The only thing you got control over is your attitude. That's it. Maybe your ball toss. You don't have control over anything else. And I tell the kids all the time, if you were losing 6-0, 3-0, could you be having a great time? And most of them say no. And you could. If you're all about the competition, you're enjoying the competition, you're doing the best you can, that's all you can ask. That's all you can ask. You can't just feel great when things are going good. You got to feel great when things are going bad. It's a 360 flip mentally, and any competitor will tell you that. It's the hardest thing to do. Okay. And I remember since you brought up Nadal, I remember one time he was playing the Canadian Open and he lost the first set 6-0. Okay. Very uncommon. And so he runs back out as he always did, runs back out for the second set. And both announcers at the same time said, "Who you putting your money on to win the match?" Now, most people that lost 6-0, it'd be the other guy. And they both said at the same time, Rafa. And
Wow.
he did. He came back and so this is what I'm trying to get the kids to understand. It's the hardest thing, not only in tennis, but the game of life. Because we all have problems. How we react to them is very different. And there's a whole landscape of ways to react to a problem. On the tennis court, if you can't remember to forget, you'll never be the best you can be.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, it's such a psychology of poker too, because here I am. I just beat Rafael Nadal 6-0 first set, and he sprints out there as if he's winning.
But you
That's
already know that he's not going away. And
yeah.
just the fact that I mean, listen, at that level, they're not gonna go away, but some people do. But with him, you just but that was done long ago, and you build that, and your mind's at a whole different level, like these elite athletes. I'm talking about greatness. Everybody's good. They're all good. Anybody can beat anybody. But greatness is rare air, and they've come as close to mastering the mental part, and it comes down to those key moments. Because listen, when you play a tennis match, Nadal, Federer, Djokovic, they're losing 45% of the points. People go, "Whoa, really?"
Hmm.
But they win 80 some percent of the matches. So they're losing 45%, they're winning 55%. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on there that separates great from good. You know what I'm saying? And that's just what they're startled when I start throwing these facts out. But you got to every day get into that routine, train your mind to be that way. What you do off the court, that's something different. But bang, when you go on the court, you got to be able to flip that switch. And like I said, if you're all about the competition, you have a tendency to do some of these things more naturally. Everybody's competitive, but some people then just become better competitors.
When I think about what you're talking about, it all makes logical sense. But to put that all into practice, one of the things that's challenging in your world, I can only imagine, is that you see probably thousands of players, juniors, and so on every single year, right? So at a certain point, you, Rick Macci, only have so much time in the day. You can't train them all. And
Right.
so then, and you mentioned before that certain players have all the check boxes checked off, and we talked about mental. I'm sure there's some physicality to it, but how do you funnel down to the 5 or 10 or even 20 that you're going to dedicate your specific time to considering that you probably see hundreds, if not more, every single year that are coming to you saying, "I want to be trained by Rick Macci." So what is that criteria? What's the selection process you go by to say this is the one that I want to dedicate some time to?
You know, it's not really like that. Here's what I do. I teach anybody. I would teach you. I teach adults. I teach the number one 80-year-old guy in the country. He used to hit flat as a pancake like Jimmy Connors, and I taught him the ATP forehand. He goes, Rick, that's the first time in 70 years I hit topspin. You know, I can do magic in 5 minutes. So, no, I just love helping anybody. So, with kids, your number one goal, let's shoot for a college scholarship and go to college free. That should be everybody's goal. Even nowadays, I mean, listen, some of these kids are getting 50, 100, $150,000. They're getting paid to go to school if you have a high enough ranking because they changed all this stuff. So I don't really say this, and this. Okay. What I do is, like I said, I have one girl now that I not only coach, but I represent her. And I have no doubt, barring injury, she's gonna be number 1 in the world someday, okay? Now, forget her for a second. There's many other kids, the best in the country, they're gonna play pro tennis. I help them when I can. I help everybody, but I have to run a business,
Mhm.
I have an academy. There's 12 other coaches. So I don't just like work with great players. I do spend as much time as I can with them, but there's hitting partners. There's taekwondo, there's boxing, there's fitness, there's other elements that go into the package. But at the end of the day, the fact that I have a contractual relationship with this one, kind of like I did with the Williamses, that's a little different because I do give as much time as I can to that. But I don't really say you. I don't really do that. I've done it with this girl, Blada, and I really haven't done that, believe it or not, since the Williamses. It's one thing to say, "I think you're better." It's another thing to put up your cheddar, to fund the project like you saw in King Richard. That's a whole different animal, and I could
Mhm.
have been wrong, you know, to put hundreds of thousands or $1 million into training plus my time, because I teach 50 hours a week. I do probably 20 hours a month Zoom with people all over the world in the parking lot at 4 in the morning at the
Wow.
so I teach anybody, but it's not just potential superstar, but I do help people on the pro tour. Um, but it's not like I'm saying I'm taking these 10 people. It's not like that. I teach anybody simply because that's what I like to do. And I set the foundation mentally and biomechanically. And that's why more kids come here, especially under 14, because once you have the base and I can get that, then wherever it goes from there, I know I've made a difference in someone's not only their tennis game, but their life.
Yeah, how old is this Ukrainian girl?
She's 9 years old. And other and I never did this before, and you could imagine I've been asked 10,000 times since 1994, when I had Venus and Serena to do this, and I never said, "I'm not gonna do that again." I'll help people out, I might give them a scholarship, but I'm not gonna invest time or money or whatever, and this is, the scariest little creature that I've ever seen. Quick, fast, disciplined, locked in, great retention, great attitude. She's small. She's only 4'5", 65 pounds, but she's going to be 5'9", 140. And she's always smiling, but she has a knife in her pocket when she's on the tennis court. Brutal competitor, super fast. And I'm just putting Humpty Dumpty together because we got to be ahead of the curve whenever it's time for that time to come, whatever 6 years from now or whatever. uh, I want the best forehand in the world, technically the best backhand in the world, the best serve in the world, and have a complete game like no other because she already has the inside. I saw the same thing as I saw in Venus and Serena on the inside. Plus, she is faster than fast. And you know as I do in this game, because movement's a premium now. The game's like advanced pinball on steroids. If you can't move, you better be dealing the cards, with the forehand, backhand, and serve like Sabalenka. So and the game's going to be faster down the road. So I'm way ahead of the curve, and it's exciting simply because, uh, maybe I'm saving the best for last because I never seen someone with this much potential, and it's a little different because not only do I coach her, uh, I represent and manage her, and it's just a great feeling knowing that I've not only made a difference in her tennis game, which she's improved crazy in the last year and a half. They're out of Ukraine, they're now here in Florida, and making a difference in a whole family's life.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And she's 9, and the game is, like, as we spoke about, it's so psychological. As you're working with her on her mental strength and also her physicality and her strokes and all that, how do you also keep a child from burning out or from feeling the pressure of, "I have to do well," because that can affect me at my age, let alone I could only imagine a child with so much pressure and a family there looking at them saying, "You are the next champion." How do you work through that so that it doesn't just corrupt everything that she loves about the sport?
First off, another great question, and you're asking the right guy about this. Listen, I know this is going to sound crazy to a lot of people watching this. You want pressure. You want pressure. You want a target on your back. You want expectations. Okay. This is part of the drill. You want that. You want to be, especially with Rick Macci saying it, the chosen one. Okay. You want that. Now, it's up to me and the family to keep it fun. She's 9 years old. Okay. And it's a journey, it's a long term process. And but I knew that before I even entered into this. She's not gonna burn out. What happens with a lot of kids, believe it or not, the parents burn out because the kids start losing. They think they at 12 years old, they're going to Wimbledon, and most of the time, they're gonna be watching it on TV like me and you, okay? They get 15, they get a boyfriend, a girlfriend, driver's license, their priorities change, and they just go to college for free and play college tennis, and that's it. You know, if I don't this burnout thing, I understand, but I look at it differently and I present it in a very different way with pressure and expectations. I flip the script a whole different way. But you're right. I think a lot of times people burn out or they lose the desire. I think the things around them is echoed incorrectly. The family dynamic has to be amazing. That's what I love about this family. They treat her like a little girl. The dad knows when to punch and he knows when to hug, and same with the mom. It's a psychology that goes on. That's what I love about Richard Williams, the best father of all time. Even though when I said left, he said right. I should be in the Hall of Fame. Just put up with that guy, okay? But he treated those kids like little girls. He didn't want to rob them of their childhood. Even though there was like a lot of pressure. It's like they were almost legendary before they did anything. Especially with me saying they're going to be better in Capriati and they're going to change. Not only could be number one in the world, and they live in the same house and share the same bedroom, I think they'll transcend the sport. And obviously, I was right, But at the end of the day, that could like overwhelm someone, but I wouldn't enter into it if I even felt that 1%. No one knows for sure, but I've just done this for so long, and I know people, and I see things, and I feel it. It's an innate thing, uh, and that doesn't mean a speed bump couldn't be smoothed out. But the parents play a big role in this. It's a little tougher with daddy's little girl. The guys are a little bit, different. So, but no, burnout usually comes from the parent. But I tell them, you want to be the one. You want pressure. You got to love pressure, but I wouldn't enter into this agreement. She eats pressure for breakfast. Listen, everybody gets nervous. Jordan, LeBron, it doesn't. Serena, better. Everybody gets nervous, but never be afraid. That's a different thing. If you weren't nervous, that means you don't have passion. You don't care. Being nervous, you got to explain. That's okay. But once you are all about the competition, that goes away, and you're a performer. This is a game. It's fun. Okay. And I present it differently. Now, to get them to buy in, that's different. But if someone listens to every word, and that's what I tell her, listen, Venus and Serena had the best compliment ever when we went to the red carpet. in the after party. When we were talking, going back down memory lane, everybody's like, we were telling stories. It was like crazy. They go, Rick, you and daddy just brainwashed us to become number one. Crazy.
Wow.
Well, I went, whoa. And it's, when we start talking about this, and at 11, I'm talking about Navratilova and Hingis and people older. I'm not saying, that's really good for 11. You did great. I'm talking about people 20, 25 years old. It has to be a little better. She's going to get it. Here's what's going to, the whole language was about, you got to see it to be it. I was already talking about that, even though they were there, and the positivity around them. And that's how I am, obviously, as a coach. Listen, I know when to squeeze, and I know how loud to say it, when to say it, why to say it, when to say it, who to say it to. But I do it in a very different way. You know, I'm always trying to extract greatness every day. Because if you're not getting better, I tell everybody, you're getting worse. I prefer better.
That's incredible. You're architecting greatness and you're architecting the mind of a competitor and a champion all throughout from the very beginning. And I can see that actually now that you say, get them familiar with the pressure. Don't let them learn about it when they hit the tour because that's horrible. You want them kind of feeling it in little steps leading up so as they can actually handle that burden and that weight when they win Wimbledon or any number of tournaments. Um,
Well, you know
it's
what?
it,
Let me jump in, 'cause there was something that you said earlier, and I tell people all the time, if you were hitting back and forth with Alcaraz, say hitting back and forth, and you hit it in the net, you'd feel a certain way. And if you're hitting back and forth, say you were 15 years old, you're hitting back and forth with a 9-year-old and you hit it in the net, would you feel the same way? And everybody says they would feel different. And I said, but you hit it in the net. See, it's perspective.
Mhm.
But they feel different because of who they hit a net against. Okay. Where uh people that I can get in their head and get them looking at it differently, like the Williamses, like whoever, like Blada. No, it's a mistake. See, I want them to think and act mentally like Rick Macci. 'Cause remember, I've said I'm more of a life coach, but everybody says the same thing. Or when people play doubles, when people play singles, they make a mistake. There's a certain reaction, or maybe they make a couple mistakes. They feel a certain way and there's a reaction. But watch when they play doubles. They miss a ball. They immediately, because they have a therapist on the court with them, they immediately go give a high five, a hug, a kiss, or a handshake, and that emotion is out the window because they're letting something control them. That's why a lot of guys make it in pro doubles and not singles. It's not because of their serve, forehand, backhand, or movement. It's the mental part. No one at 12 saying, I want to be one of the best doubles players in the world. They're all thinking singles, but they end up playing doubles. And you got to remember to forget. And you got to do that over a couple hour period of time. That's why when you see the grand slams, if you go back in time, you never have a guy come out of nowhere and win these things. It was always Nadal, Djokovic, Federer. You never have it because 3 out of 5, that's even more of a mental battle. You know what I mean? It's not like 2 out of 3, a big server, you could lose 6 and 6. I get it. But it becomes such a mental thing to win it. You might upset an Alcaraz or a Sinner, or you might pull an upset, but are you going to be able to keep going and win it? You can't find any tournament with the guys that happens, and that just reinforces what I'm saying about the mental part, and that's why you see the best players in the grand slams because it's 3 out of 5 always win those things.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And it's obviously different players have different strengths and weapons. Some have amazing forehand, some amazing serves. But I think that as tennis has evolved since I was a kid, it seems like everybody's got a great forehand now. Everybody's got a great serve. And yet what differentiates these players, and from my level, again, I played in college, so I was better than your average person, but I was nowhere close to these guys. So when I watch the professionals, I realized that making it to the top 100 of the world is already a superhuman feat. But climbing from there to the top 20 or the top 10, and even the top 3, there's something exponentially rarer But then even when you look at the top 3 and now you think to become number 1 and to stay there, it feels like you need a gear that almost defies explanation. It's like you look at the difference between 1, 2, and 3, and the rest of the field, at least for the last 20 years, it seems miles of a difference, right? And
Ab-
so that's, I think, that
Absolutely.
X factor you're talking about. It's the psychology, but it's the whole package. It's like psychology, it's the perseverance, it's obviously the physicality, because at this point, players look more like sprinters than anything else. They get to balls that I
Yes.
would have thought were impossible when I was a kid, but they get to them now and they hit them for winners. But they have this amazing package. When you look at Alcaraz, for example, or Sinner, they have such imperceptible weaknesses. Like for me, Alcaraz, I look at him, he's a complete package. He just kind of like loses focus and likes to play around out there, which is great. He's a young kid, he's enjoying it, but he doesn't have like the stay on top and destroy the opponent like a Sinner does, because Alcaraz likes to do the fancy shots and sometimes it gets him in trouble. But that to me is like maybe a little bit of a weakness if there is anything that can be perceived.
Well, first off, you've been around the block. You know what you're talking about here. But let me back the truck up to Alcaraz. Generational talent like we haven't seen the last 25 years. The Spanish magician. Listen, I what you're saying is true, but you got to remember one thing. Because he has the whole entree, he can do everything, and he has turbo makeup speed from outer space. Okay, and he has so many options, and they're not rentals. He owns them. So when you have that, he's going to be more of a shot maker at times or a risk taker at times. But then again, he has 4 Grand Slams,
Mhm.
you know, and he's 21. No one's done that. Not Nadal, Joker, Federer. But no, none of these guys have done that. So you got to understand it cuts both ways. But if he's maybe off a little bit, he's human. No one's going undefeated. I'm sitting here right now. Both him and Sinner will be double-digit Grand Slams. Okay, so Carlos is upside, and he's beaten Sinner the last 3 times. You got to understand, he has more he's bringing to the table, but he might have some bad losses because he's so confident in doing so many things. And here I am, like, throwing a little dagger at the guy, which is insane. I've never seen anything like it, and I've seen everybody live and in color. This is a whole different animal, and the makeup speed. And he's a Broadway performer with a racket in his hand, and
Mhm.
he can do everything. But now you got Sinner, the Italian flamethrower, both sides rock solid, biomechanically just locked, and a great serve. And he can move great. Remember, he was national skiing champion downhill at age 11. Okay. So his body's a little different. He gets in and out of the corner like he's doing a slalom. You got to understand there's some genetics there. And he's just kind of has that like a rock. And he's not going to disappear mentally. And back on Sinner, the fact that he got banned, well, that's a whole nother podcast. Um, it made him stronger. Sometimes adversity, okay, can make you grow as an athlete. And for some people, that could really mess you up.
Mhm.
And he got stronger through that. And when he came back to get all the way to the finals and play the way he's been playing, it's crazy for not doing that for 3 months. You're not like just like in a team competition. This is pro tennis. Okay, very different. So that just shows you mentally, but he's not doing as many. I shouldn't say he's not doing as many things. He has the 3 big ticket items: the serve, the forehand and backhand, and it's all high level. Okay, then he has the mind. So you're out there, like Root said, I was playing against a human ball machine. So he's not going to beat himself unless something happens that we don't know about, the night before or whatever. So his game is going to look a little different. But I'm just telling you, Alcaraz is on another level, um, as far as where this can go. But right now, you got the big two. And 10 years from now, both these guys will be way into double digit Grand Slams. And we'll be talking about them like Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic.
Well, it's amazing how they elevate each other to that greatness too,
Absolutely.
right? I think Federer would have never been Federer if he didn't have Nadal or Djokovic, and same for the other guys. It's like that level of competition, and you see it significantly influenced when one of them retires. I mean, granted, they're all in like the very latter stage of their career, but when Federer retired, you saw a little spark go away from Djokovic and from Nadal, and then Nadal retires, and you see that spark go away from Djokovic. There's physical injuries and things like that as well, but it doesn't seem like they're as hungry anymore because they lost their muse or their rival that they grew up trying to beat that whole time, right?
Yeah, no, listen, when you go back to Alcaraz and Sinner, the best coach for each of them is each other. It's
Hmm.
not their actual coach. You know what I mean? And everybody's trying to get the edge. Everybody's trying to improve. Even Djokovic, he's trying to make things better at age 38 and just won his 100th tournament, the other day in Geneva. They're always trying to get better, but you got Alcaraz and Sinner, it's now the big 2, and they're helping each other go to another level, and they can use the other one's strength. Like, I'm sure they're talking to him, "Listen, Sinner doesn't go away. He's locked in, da 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 da." And they play that card as a motivational tool. And the flip side, look what Carlos can do. He'll use the drop a lot more. He comes in when you're out of position. You know, he he does all these subtle nuances, and I'm sure Sinner worked on all those little motor skills during the 3 months he was, suspended. So that's what you want, because when you got someone right there with you, as we all know, competition breeds more competition, and that's what really happened with the Dow, Federer, and Djokovic, and they just lift each other to new heights.
Yeah. You see, since I started playing or even watching as a kid, the sport has changed so much in the last decade, but it's also changed in the last since the 70s and 80s when I was watching as a little kid. I remember seeing McEnroe play and then eventually seeing Stefan Edberg, which was one of my favorites, against Boris Becker, all the way through Sampras and Agassi, and then Federer and now Alcaraz. And the game's changed significantly. I mean, even in the way that we would teach strokes, how you stand for the forehand. It would always be closed off and make sure you swing from low to high. Now the forehand people are much more open and the swing is totally different. Backhand serves, all that changes. And presumably it'll keep evolving over time. As you think about where you're training this 9-year-old Ukrainian now, and you think about where the sport is kind of going towards and where it'll be, where she hits the professional scene, does that affect you and you're thinking about where the puck is going and how the sport will be then? Or do you just much more focus on the player and just trying to maximize everything they can do? Because if they're that great, they might actually have an influence in where the direction that the sport goes as well, right?
Good point. First off, you're a great question again, and you're asking the right guy, because now we're getting into the biomechanics, okay, of what's happening. The game in a state of emergency,
Sorry,
okay?
Mackie. You froze for about 20 seconds there. So you were
Okay.
saying you're asking the right guy because now we're getting into biomechanics, and then you froze.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, listen, stroke mechanics is at an all-time high, but tennis now is like a game of emergencies. Okay, what I mean by that, because of the technology, the rackets are like AK-47. The strings are so explosive to get more spin and more pop. The athletes, like every other sport, football, baseball, basketball, bigger, stronger, faster. Okay, but the dimensions of the court are the same. The rules are the same. So it's more physical. Think about it. We do more from a sports science nowadays, but people get more injured nowadays. Doesn't make sense. For back in the day, you didn't have this many injuries.
Mhm.
So the point I'm trying to make is you talked about, turn, step, hit, or turn sideways. It depends on the speed of the ball. If the ball is slow and it's in front of you and the sun's shining, sure, you can step in like old school. But you're going to you're out of necessity. You got to play more of a semi or an open stance off both wings. And you saw this And I knew where this was going with Venus. She hit open stance on both sides the way back when, ahead of the curve. But yeah, open stance, whenever you hit open stance, okay, you're going to have what we call more angular momentum. You can actually hit the ball harder rotating on an axis than you can going linear, which is straight.
Mhm.
Now, the stroke has changed where there's actually, I don't want to go too deep here, there's actually two pronations that occur. When you take the racket back, it's inverted to the outside. And when you pull it, it flips down and back and then it pronates again. Where before it was just like an arc, a rainbow, a banana, a candy cane, a Ferris wheel, letter C, whatever, and you were smooth and you were playing with wood rackets or not that powerful racket. So there's been adaptations and modification to obviously the technology, and that influences um, the way people hit the ball. But me and my partner, Dr. Brian Gordon, he's probably the number one sports science guy in the world. Okay, we were on the cutting edge of this, you know, 17 years ago. I did a video for USPTA that went viral. People said, "Whoa, that's just too analysis. To You're analyzing." I was talking about tap the dog, the pull, the flip, where the racket was, and people weren't ready for it. But I think 5 million views were ready for it, and it was a best-selling video in the USPTA. People didn't I was explaining what was happening on the tour, but people, unfortunately, they teach others the way they were taught, and people don't like to continue their education. Now, to answer your question, can where's this going with Vlada? Okay, I've always trained girls a little different. Cut the court, don't give up the baseline, take the ball right off the bounce, you deal the cards, you're running the show. Venus, Serena, Capriati, Sharapova, Kennan, Meskina, Pierce, all cut from the same cloth. Different body type, different genetics, but Vlada is even more different. She takes the ball off the bounce, almost like a short hop, and she's already cutting the court on the backhand. And as I sit here today, and you'll go back and look at this video. Her backhand cross court right off the bounce better than anybody in Pro Tour right now. What I mean by that is I can see what she's going to grow into. Her size and strength. Obviously, her better backhand. I'm just saying her intention. Weight's always forward, whether it's open or closed. As soon as it's hit, boom, boom. She's playing a ball, not a person. And that's what I'm working on with the forehand. Because tennis is more today a game of time. It's a game of emergency. As I said earlier, it's like advanced pinball on steroids. And if you can move, that means if you had a bad shot or you're nervous, you can live another day. Okay. That's why the Williamses could, even if they were nervous, they could run around like a squirrel and still win matches because they had this speed. If you got that in your back pocket, like Alcaraz and Sinner and all these guys. So yeah, I'm projecting where this is going to go. I think the game, you got to have everything. You got to be able to chip it, dip it, flip it, rip it. You got to have the slice. You got to be able to do everything. And I think Andreeva, she is already changing the game because she can do everything, especially when she's in trouble. And Alcaraz has changed the game not only for the other pros to use the drop more, he's changed the way the game is being taught. Before, if you missed a drop shot, it was like, why are you trying that, you knucklehead? Now it's like, okay, you got to understand, he's missed more drop shots at age 7, 8, 9, and 10 than anybody in the world. And that's why on the Pro Tour, he makes more with more disguise and deception. So the players, believe it or not, a lot of times teach the coaches, the 98% that maybe don't understand the biomechanics or they're not willing to improve their education. There's a difference between optimal and just good, and that's what I try to do with everybody. It's not cloning, it's not one size fits all, but you got to be in the neighborhood.
And what do you think of the state of U.S. competitiveness? The U.S. dominated back in the '90s with Sampras and Agassi and Courier and Chang and so on. Um, and then Federer came around, and then it became kind of like the era of Europe. And it's never looked back. Do you see the level of talent right now at the junior level or even earlier? I mean, you mentioned this Ukrainian girl; she's obviously from the Ukraine. Do
Yeah.
you see the U.S. level of competitiveness in professional tennis rising back to where it was back then anytime soon?
No, I do not. But let me expand upon that a little bit. Back then, the guys you talked about, okay, tennis now is so global. You could have someone from some island, and he's the first player from Lebanon or this place or whatever, be top 50. So if you're an athlete and you have an opportunity, it's a great way to make a living. So the game is much different than Courier, Agassi, Chang, Sanford, Connors, McEnroe. It's very, very different. So that ship has sailed. Now, with all the people that play tennis in this country, okay, the depth that we have right now, I'll talk with the men first, has never been better. But do I see someone uh, winning a grand slam? Yeah, they might be able to grab one. Injury to Alcaraz or Sinner or something breaks a certain way, you might grab one. But could anybody get there and stay there? I don't see it. Okay. And the reason why is this: the unique athletes, okay, they go to football, they go to basketball. Okay, listen, if I had LeBron James at 10 years old, I guarantee I could have made him number one in the world.
Hmm.
No doubt. You imagine having, Federer forehand and a Roddick serve and a Djokovic backhand on 6'8", 250 and run and jump like that with
Hmm.
that competitiveness, game over. Will we get that type of athlete? Maybe. But they don't talent search for that. And plus it's expensive if you gotta do it on your own. They go to other sports. You can pick up a ball and just
Hmm.
start firing hoops or play football. So we don't get the elite athlete, okay? We don't get that athlete, okay? And people don't realize Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic, they're great athletes. People don't look at it. An athlete to me is from the head to the toe. It's not just who can jump the highest, okay, or run the fastest. Because how many grand slams does Monfils have? How many grand slams does Kyrgios have? Donut. So you see, but you got to get the premium athlete if you can, optimal stroke mechanics, okay, train them mentally, then that will happen. But it's a very tough thing right now because everything's so global and the best athletes, and it's so physical. Anybody can beat anybody. Now, the women, it's a little different because it's not as physical. Can we have Coco Gauff, good friends with her father? Her little brother plays in the academy. He's the number one middle school quarterback in the United States. I mean, you talk about genetics and if that whole household, they're probably beating each other up all the. I mean, that's a whole nother animal. And she's a great athlete, even though there's holes in her game. Her backbone is incredible. Her resiliency is unreal, but there's a few holes that in her game. We'll see if that gets corrected. But women's tennis has never looked better. There's a lot of them in the mix. Uh, but it's not as physical, you know,
Hmm.
and they're athletes. But there's more opportunity for the male athlete in this country, the best. I mean, the cream of the crop. They go to other sports. But if we get a couple, there's no doubt someone could win a grand slam. Since my old student Andy Roddick did, in 2000 or whatever.
Oh yeah. Um, Rick, you have shared in the greatest moments in tennis history, watching your players lift Grand Slam trophies, dominate the world stage, and defy the odds. With so much success under your belt, I imagine that wins start to blend together over time. But are there a few moments that stand out to you? Times that felt especially personal, emotional, or deeply fulfilling when you look back at this incredible career that you've had building champions over the last 2, 3 decades?
Well, my best time of all is right now being here with you. So I'm just bang. I'm always like that. I'm lasered in on whatever there. But no, I, listen, people ask me all the time before I answer that question, who's my favorite student
Oh,
of
well.
all time? And they think it's going to be like Venus, Serena, or someone like that. It's not. It's who's ever on the other side of the net that hour, that minute, that second. And that's the way I feel. And the students can feel that. And that's how you lift others and extract greatness. When you, as a coach or mentor or a father figure, can get that out of people. But probably, if I had to say, well, there'd be a couple. When I took Jennifer Capriati to the girls' 18 hard courts as a 12-year-old. Okay, her parents didn't
Wow.
even want to. Yeah, that's a record that still stands today. She didn't want her. I don't want my little baby to get hurt, and she won that tournament. Okay, as a 12-year-old, since that was in 1988, record still stands today. And you know, so she shook the girl's hand, came right up in the crowd and hugged me. And, so that would be near the top. But obviously, it had to be with Venus because Venus and Serena were like my own daughters. And when you do something for 4 years, or well, it was 3.5 before that debut, and you're not getting paid and you're doing all this and you could be wrong and you're gearing up for the future. Listen, she wouldn't even have played that tournament if they wouldn't have changed the age eligibility rule in 1994. They changed it because of the Capriati burnout or whatever, and you had to turn pro. So I told Richard, hey, you either got to turn pro, okay, or we got to wait and play little tournaments in the future. And I knew Richard. He didn't want anybody dictating anything to him. So he'd, okay, we got to turn pro. Listen, I didn't know if she's going to freak out, lose 0-0. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just knew they would see some little girl. Well, she wasn't little. She was 5'10", run like the wind, be a gazelle, a lot of open stance, 112-mile-an-hour serve as a 14-year-old. And they're going to say, this kid's going to be great someday. And Rick saying her little sister might even be better. So I knew that's what was going to happen. But listen, she hadn't played a match in 3.5 years. So you got to understand 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, 3.5 years training. That's it. Just playing matches against coaches. And now she's going to jump into a pro tournament and she beats 57 in the world, as you saw in the movie, 4-3, Sean Stafford. Then the next night, I mean, that in itself was like epic. Next night,
Mhm.
she played Sanchez, number 1 in the world. She's up 6-3, 3-1. I'm there with the late, great Bud Collins. Okay, Rick, this is better than the 69 Mets. This is better than Rocky Balboa. This is Ali Frazier. Greatest upset in the history of sports. You walk off the court, you never play a match, you enter a pro tournament, and you beat number 1 in the world.
Yeah.
Give me a break. See, I knew what was inside this little girl. Anyway,
Mhm.
she ended up losing the match, but that moment that she won the first match and she's jumping up and down like a human pogo stick and the beads are flying up and down. You got to understand, it was just like, wow. It was like that moment. And then 7 months later, she gets a $12 million contract.
That's incredible. I mean, it's I could sit here talking to you all day because it's a dream come true, but I want to be cognizant of time. So, Rick, can I ask you one last question? If you could give advice to future competitors in this field, in tennis, what would that be? It could be anywhere from juniors to kids aspiring to play in college or whatever. You've seen so much of tennis, you've seen so much of where it's going and what really makes these champions. Again, if you're thinking about that new generation that says, I want to play tennis, what advice would you give them?
Well, first off, another great question. The only thing you got control over, and I mentioned it, is your attitude. That's it. That's the only thing you got control over. And positive, the best of all the rest are the most positive creatures that ever walked the face of the earth. Okay? Because you have a choice. Okay? And all these guys that are great in any profession are so positive. So it's the mental part. You know, you control the situation. Don't let it control you. Okay? Your attitude is the most important thing. And you got to love the competition. You got to love the competition. That's why you're doing it. It's fun. It's a game. You got to keep that perspective. And you should have a journal and look at it every day. I don't even mind if you talk to that guy in the mirror every day and remind yourself of that. People let too many things go into their head. Okay. We're aware of what goes into our mouth, but not into our head. And everybody needs to understand to be the best you can be, it's all about handling stuff and being positive. And so anybody out there, if you're being the best competitor you can be, the other things will fall into place.
Tremendous words to live by. In full honesty, I feel like I'm a better human being for having spoken to you for this last hour. Rick, this has been such a privilege and an honor. I love the sport. I love what you've done. You're the man behind the scene, but you've influenced the sport globally in such tremendous and material ways that it goes without saying how much you've influenced my life in a sport that I love so much as well. So thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for being a part of this interview, for being a part of this podcast. It's a pleasure to get to know you. Thank you again, and I hope you the best for you with this Ukrainian player and all of the other champions that are coming out of your tennis academy.
No, thanks. It was a lot of fun, and we'll definitely do it again.
That was Rick Macci. Now, Unnatural Signals.
Rick Macci gave us a rare look at how world-class performance is actually built, not in highlight reels, but in habits. Here's what we're archiving from this conversation. Love the process, not the trophy. The people who last are the ones who enjoy the work itself. When you love the process, improvement never runs out. Remembering to forget is actually a skill. Great competitors process failure fast. Learn from the lesson. Drop the emotion, move on. Drag the weight, and it drags you down. It's always a people business. Coaching, leadership, innovation, none of it works without understanding how people think, feel, and respond under pressure. Rick shows us that durability isn't built by avoiding stress. It's built by learning how to metabolize it.
Thanks for listening to Unnatural Selection. If you enjoyed the episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone shaping the future. Explore more at unnaturalselection.net and connect with us on LinkedIn and Facebook. Until next time, keep evolving.